Give me a flex. Too big. Bring it in. Oh my gosh. Look at that man. Look at that man. Hunter.
Yes.
I would love to know what are some of the, like, what the place of like machines are in the weight room, and like what some of the differences are between machines and free weights.
Every machine is cheating. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Well, I guess what we could talk about is maybe some of the reasons why people might want to use machines over free weights.
Sure.
But personally, and I would say everyone here at Success are kind of the agreement that you want to use a combination and potentially more free weights than machines. Not to say that the machines are bad. For example, I had a client that like almost cut their thumb off a couple weeks ago and was in a brace. So like if we would have been like, oh, all we can use is barbells and dumbbells, wouldn't have been able to work out. And I was like, oh, just come on into your session and we can figure a bunch of stuff out. So obviously it was not really able to hold on to a barbell on the back. So we did the kabuki bar, which I guess would be a free weight, but it's kind of like a machine. And, you know, she could do squats.
Oh, sure.
We did our hack squat, which I'll go talk about in a little bit, which gave her the ability to do that, right? For myself, I train a lot and I try to basically reach my limits, so I can train a lot more if I use machines because they're more stable and a lot of times they're safer.
Mm-hmm.
I think one big, huge benefit is like, especially with squats, it's so hard to take a barbell squat nice and deep and go to like complete failure. Because, you know, what's going to give out is your balance before the musculature of the lower body.
For sure.
Versus if you were to use a leg press or maybe even like a Smith machine squat or a hack squat, you could actually take that muscle through complete failure and you're not really compromised as far as like losing your balance and falling over and getting hurt. Okay? But we can talk kind of a little bit about the importance of having cables. I think one great example, and this applies to almost every exercise with the cable, but if we're taking the cable, and I could kind of look at it for a side delt raise, so we'll just go, I'll turn it this way so you can kind of see, but just say I was standing nice and upright and I was doing a side delt raise. The nice thing here is the strength curve is what we call it. Essentially right here, you can see the resistance is being pulled. So right here, I'm getting a lot of resistance. Up at the top, the resistance curve actually kind of falls down a little bit. So potentially it's a little bit lighter. I don't know what the complete load number would be, but you can feel it. It's heavier here, lighter here. As opposed to the free weight, if we had a free weight, essentially what we'll see is there's nothing going on here at all. Which potentially, if you're looking at like muscle building, you'd want to have that under a stretch, and you'd want to have load there at that position. Really, I don't get any load until I get about here, and then right about here, it gets super, super heavy. So in the more shortened position. And that's going to be true across almost everything. If we're doing a bicep curl, we don't really get a lot here.
Right.
So from here to here, we get a lot. And if I was to do, once again with the cable, a bicep curl, if I set up like this, now I'm actually getting max stretch here, and then it falls off at the top, so it's opposite. So it might be a great idea for your programming to do a bicep curl with, you know, in front of the cable like such, where you're getting a big stretch, position like that, and then you could also do a free weight curl where you're hitting more of that top contraction. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So that's one way.
Great point, great point.
Being able to vary the strength curves. And I mean, if you look at the free motion cable, like tons and tons and tons of adjustments and exercises that you can do.
Right.
Right? Variations there. So specifically, I'd like to talk about a hack squat. So we have I'd like to call it plate pin. I don't know what you call these. Weight stack variant. So it has a weight stack, right? So as we kind of talked about, with the barbell squats, it's going to be much more dangerous. So if you're by yourself, if you don't have a squat rack, for example, it's going to be a lot more dangerous. And even if you do have those things, you could still tip or fall over or injure yourself just based on losing your balance. Whereas if I was to use this guy, I get locked in. It's great because I can get as much range of motion as I want. I can position the foot pad and make sure my heels stay down, all this kind of nice stuff. But my back is up against the pad. So now there's no way that I could lose my balance and fall over and injure myself. I can go through, and we can go through complete failure. So let's just say I was like failing. Oh my gosh, my muscles, they won't go. All I gotta do is fall down, and I'm safe.
Right. I was so happy when we got this thing for that one reason.
Yeah. And if I was doing that on a squat, barbell squat, and I didn't have the safeties, I would essentially probably, fall and injure myself or potentially even kill myself.
Right. Yeah, it's happened.
So that's one area where machines are great. Okay. Another one, like if you just come over to this leg press here, this is kind of a nifty leg press. If you want to train the glute in that nice stretch position, this leg press is great because it kind of starts to scoop my foot up. And what that does is it pushes up here so I can get much deeper and still stay down on the heel.
Sure.
So really it's hard to mimic this. I mean, you could do a step up, but step ups are hard to like progressively overload and things like that because it's harder to add load. Whereas this one, we can just simply add more plates.
Right.
So there's an advantageous position to, being in a leg press like this, as well as a hip sled leg press, right? Where the weights are kind of on top of you, and you can even like throw people up on those ones and press them sometimes. But another area, I think one of my favorite machines in the gym, if I had, a gym that only had free weights and maybe cables, the one machine that I would like make a non-negotiable for me is a leg curl, okay? Because when you're looking at training your hamstrings, right? Training the hamstrings work to extend the hip, so like this, in a deadlift.
Yep.
So kind of takes you from this position to this position, or you could say that it's one of the functions to bring your body back up, as well as the glutes, as well as the low back. So that's one function of training the glutes. And if you don't have a machine such as a leg curl, you can't actually work the other main function, which is essentially to bring the foot up to the butt or extend at the knee, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas the leg curl, you can do that. You can take through a full range of motion. So as far as the hamstrings go, potentially the only way to train the hamstrings would be to have a machine. You could hit both functions if you had a glute ham raise machine, which is again a machine, or if you're strong enough, you could do like a Nordic curl where you kind of like prop your feet here, and then you go like this, and you pull yourself back up.
Sure. Yeah,
but I would kind of argue that you still need a machine for that, and then also you have to be really strong to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's a lot nicer just to have a machine. So
I love this thing. Love it.
yeah.
Great find.
But if we want to, kind of take a devil's advocate there on machines, they can be, I guess, incorrect for some people, or they could cause issues for some people. We can kind of maybe go up to the Smith machine here.
Yep.
Let's just say that, I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this, but let's just say that I was doing a Smith machine overhead press, as such. This actually works out fine for me, but as an example, maybe I can't get into that position. Like maybe I don't have the wrist mobility to get into that position. There's nothing I can do. The Smith machine has to stay straight.
Right, it's fixed.
If I had dumbbells, maybe I'm like, well, I can't really do that straight position. I'm going to do them like this. Now we can do them like that because the dumbbells are
freeing. Yeah,
freeing. Same thing with like, if you had like the hammer strength machines where you were doing the chest press hammer strength or lat pull down hammer strength, it's going to be harder to make small adjustments if it doesn't work for your body. So what I always just tell people is like, I do programming for people. Some people come to the gym and then they go to like Experience Fitness, Planet Fitness, all these other gyms, and they use their machines. I'll sometimes program in, say like a chest press machine, and I just tell them, I'm like, if it doesn't feel good, if it hurts at all, please let me know and we'll move that exercise to something else. But you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. There's some chest press machines out there that I absolutely cannot do because they like aggravate my shoulders, they hurt, they don't give me good range of motion. And I just used like a Arsenal strength, hammer strength press the other day that was like, oh my gosh, this is like butter, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels so good. And it's just, sometimes it's like dependent on the machine, dependent on the manufacturer, and dependent on you. Like one machine might work good for me, might not work good for Tom, but it could be vice versa as well. So that's where it kind of comes in and gets a little bit more tricky. And if if you're limited to like one chest press machine at your gym, you may just not want to use that machine if it doesn't work good for you.
Yeah.
So, but I think a variation, maybe 60 to 80% should be free weights. The rest could be, just machines. I would still, personally, I think, even though it is a machine, I mean, technically these are objects or machines. In a way,
Sure, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I would still put the cable in as free weight just because it literally is so free. You can go all the way around.
Cables are good, yeah.
Yeah, I
Cables are
kind of
nice.
categorize the machine as something that's a little bit more fixed.
Sure.
Like the leg curl. Not that they're not adjustable, but they're once you're in, you're locked in.
Right.
So I would say count these into your like 60 to 80%, and then the rest can be machines.
Sure.
Okay? But that's, I guess, my general thoughts.
What do you think about like different cable, like with this, you can track this guy all the way up to, 200 pounds, and like, would you
Yeah,
say
so-
that, these weights match the weights on the free motion cable? You know what I mean?
So a lot of times, my issue with these types, and a lot of times you'll see this one where it kind of goes across and there's another one on the other side.
Yeah.
They're great, but if we're programming in, and I use machines a lot for like rear delt training or side delt training. This one here, I know for a fact for a lot of my female clients that I program with, and if they have this machine at their gym, it's almost always the same case. They can't really get into a proper rear delt position because it's too heavy. Okay, so that's one downside, and the other downside is if you have the double, it's always fixed. It can't be changed as far as how wide you go. So like I prefer having the free motion where each arm is independently changeable. So you can go up and down, and you can come side to side, right? And if we get these the same, for example, it's also nice because it goes down to 2.5 pounds.
Right, yeah. Compared to, you're stuck at 10 there.
One of my clients has a gym where she trains at, and it starts at 15 pounds. I'm like, what? And she can almost not do any like shoulder exercises on it. So,
Right.
But this one's great because let's just say, for example, that I had these set up too close. Now I'm like bottoming out. I'm like, oh shoot, I'm bottoming out. Now I can just go ahead and change the position and make sure that I get that perfect position for me to be able to do whatever exercise I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So, I guess that'd be the main difference, but they both have validity. This one here might not be quite as good to be maybe do like standing, chest flies or something like that because it doesn't go out quite as wide.
Sure.
Comparatively to some of the other ones. But they're both good. I think you could use either one for most exercises, honestly. So that's pretty much that, yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you so much, Hunter. As always, a wealth of knowledge.